Okay, so I am recording. And let me share my screen. I forget how to do this. Oh, here it is. Okay, so our reflection question today is just, and maybe this will be a good, reflection question. It's more just a practice. Take some time to notice how your body's feeling right now. Where does it hurt? Where does it feel uncomfortable? Notice areas of tension. Often these areas are associated with chronic stress, fear, or anger that lead to health problems. On a community level, where do you feel the areas of tension? What chronic stress, fear, or anger may be leading to that? Imagine what it would look like if that was no longer part of your community. So think about that. And I don't know that I'll read. I'll quickly go through confidentiality, listening, sharing, curiosity, responsibility, commitment. These are our conversation agreements. I think I'm going to highlight, I feel like I never really highlight confidentiality. I feel like that's pretty basic, but maybe I'll just quickly talk about that. I am obviously recording. It's meant to only be for very specific people, and I'm willing to take it down at any point in time if you guys decide you don't want it up. So please let me know. But other than that, just be careful with what people say. I want people to feel safe, like they can share things without everybody else blabbing about it. I don't think any of us know anybody else. Like, I don't know anybody else around Stephanie, and I don't know anything else, anywhere else. So, but it's just to be conscientious of that. Any questions or thoughts about these conversation agreements?
Nope.
Basic there. Okay. So, all right. Any thoughts? Any thoughts from the reflection question? This idea of tension, where we're seeing it, where it's showing up, what it looks like in community, or any positive experiences you've had with those who think differently than you?
I have no tension. I'm not following the political thing at all. I'm not.
There you go.
See?
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's the same way. I love Kansas City Chiefs, but I can't watch them play. So what I do is I check the score. And if they're looking good at the end of the game, I'll watch. Anyway, that's kind of a little facetious, but not really.
Yeah, I thought I could watch it, but I said maybe I should be like LaSonia. Nope, I'm not looking at it. Let me work on my grant. Life is going on. And, I turn on the TV and it's just like, oh, my God.
I can't listen to the people talking about it, but
I'm just like, okay, let's look at the coolest places on earth on Amazon.
I will share a positive experience with those who think differently. And actually, this is along the political realm too, which this was a really interesting conversation I had with somebody. So I was trained and I'm kind of been a part of a group called Living Room Conversations. That's who I was originally trained through with dialogue. And so I follow their format and utilize a lot of what I've learned with them. But one of the things that they did is they partnered with an organization that would put two people together who are of opposite political spectrums. So they didn't actually tell you they didn't give the name or label what political party you were, but they asked you a series of questions that they then matched you with somebody else who answered that differently than you, right? And they put you together one-on-one and had a series of questions like what we're doing right now. Just discussing various, I wouldn't say political topics, but maybe civic engagement topics, about, part of the problems of society. How do we go about trying to fix those kinds of things? What really impressed me was how similar we were. I mean, at the end of the conversation, I sat with her and we both talked about this. We're like, I would have never guessed that we would have been paired together with opposite political ideologies. Mostly because I think as people, we actually really care deeply about the same things. We really do. We care deeply about poverty. We care deeply about caring about people. We care deeply about, morality and ethics and how to best solve these things. So it was just really fascinating to me. I mean, there was some obvious little differences here and there, but nothing that was like, oh my gosh, you are totally this other. I can totally see why they paired us together. It wasn't like that. So I found that really fascinating. And I honestly think that would be a really interesting experiment just to do across the board with a lot of people, and how that may change our perception of other political parties or ideologies, or people who hold different political ideologies than we do. Because it certainly changed mine in terms of like really being able to see we aren't really that different. We actually really do care deeply about very similar things. So that was just interesting for me. Any other thoughts about any of those questions?
Well, what you said, sometimes I ponder that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like you, and even in the church, like you agree, but you don't agree. And I think it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to how the execution on what you believe, how it should be resolved.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, I believe in love, but you might believe that you go out and you find your one true love, heart. And somebody says, no, you have an arranged marriage and you learn to love each other. But you
Yes.
both agree that marriage is good.
Yeah.
You see?
That's interesting. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so, I've been kind of pondering that. And it's just like, people may have the same views, but the way they execute it is differently.
That's an interesting idea. Yeah. Yeah. I think the main thing for me is it teaches you to look at the other person more as a human being versus
Mm-hmm.
like a political ideology or a thing or something that you're willing to hate, right? Because of it. So,
Yeah.
all right. So we're talking about the Village response to racism today, and next week we'll talk a little bit about what we feel we want to do about it. So I have a quote here from President Nelson, and then the other one is from Barbara Holmes, who's the author of that book that I showed you guys last week. She's an African-American pastor. I love the way she views the world. So she's a pretty amazing lady when I've listened to her. But so President Nelson, of course, I think we've heard this. Today, I call upon our members everywhere to lead out in abandoning attitudes and actions of prejudice. I plead with you to promote respect for all of God's children. And then Dr. Barbara Holmes says this: as a village, we have a sacred duty to respond to the crisis of oppression and injustice. We have a responsibility to respond to the suffering of others around us. But first, we have to figure out who we are, how we're going to show up, and how we're going to work with others, our neighbors, in a communal response to crisis. So I think I'm just going to take this first question. I think this might be interesting because I think we all come from different places. Where is your community hurting when it comes to racism?
For Idaho, at least where I live, not northern Idaho or all those guys started their little Aryan things, but in southwest Idaho, it's a lack of understanding that there's racism. That's as simple as I can put it, because there's so very few Black men and women and children that live in this area. Like this Joe Smalls that I've been interviewing. As far as I know, he's the only Black person in our state, in our state. So I think for here, it's awareness. Does that make sense? Because if we don't worry about it, like when I talk to people about it, it's almost like, no, I don't want to talk about it. Not out of a meanness, but out of I don't need to deal with it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Here in St. Louis is a little bit different. I mean, we don't have mass quantities of Blacks in the church, but the few that we do have, and it just came down to the unknowing, they don't know culture, and like as Blacks, we come into the religion, the church, and we're forced to learn the culture. Okay.
Yeah.
We're forced to sing the hymns a certain way. to pray a certain way, but they're not forced to learn our culture. And there's this one thing that, and I just brought it up, and I'm like, oh, we got to tell them this. You know, we had a member whose son was shot, and they're going to have a repast. So we're discussing the menu, and then I'm like, oh, and number one thing, make sure there's boxes of gloves to serve the food. Because in Black churches, you have to have on your gloves before you serve food. You don't touch the food whatsoever with your hands. Oh, well, thank you for that. We don't want to do anything stupid. I go, oh, you're not going to do anything stupid. They're like, I mean, you won't do anything wrong. And they're go, no, we would have got that wrong. And I go, that's true. Because, you know, I was first counselor twice. And when we had funerals or repasts for people of color, it's like, put on your gloves, okay?
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but the thing is that, you know, now they know, but they're not forced to learn our culture.
Yeah.
And that's why I was trying to get people to come to Genesis. Yes, you can watch it at home, but when you get together in that forum, you learn of people's culture. You learn of their struggles. You learn what to do and what not to do. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, it's the lack in my community is the lack of knowledge and wanting to make connections.
So I have a question. I'm fascinated by Genesis. I've done just a little research on it, but I'm not down in Salt Lake on the right weekends when they actually hold the meeting. I think it's once a month now, if I remember right.
No, it's always been once a month, Fast Sunday. And, and here's the other thing too, because I had a priesthood holder from Arizona that wants to do, you know, building relationships with African Americans in the community, in the church. So I was telling him about Genesis. He goes, well, I'm looking for the link and I can't find it. And I go, well, you know, you can find it on the Facebook, but you could always look it up on the website. And it's been around since 1971. And his response was, I'm intrigued that we can pull it up on a church website. And it's just like, this is no grassroots thing. This has been around for
a bit.
Years. I mean, decades. And people don't know it because it's not taught, right? And people don't want to learn about the culture. So yeah, you can look it up on Sundays. If you join the Facebook group, you can get it that way. But on the first Sunday of every month, regardless, rain, shine, or fall, or rain, whatever, it's there. And you can pull it up from the church website for the broadcast.
It's on their broadcast page.
Yeah, the broadcast page. Yeah.
I'm not on Facebook. So is there another way?
Well,
just the church website.
Through the church website?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you.
On the broadcast page. It's there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, the things that I'm trying to do, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I am trying to initiate what's already there.
Yeah.
You know, and people are like, well, is it church sanctioned? Yes.
They're called.
It's calling. I pass it out and tell them, you know.
So, you know, that's interesting because I think the very fact that people are worried about being church sanctioned points to where we have racism. The fact that we're worried that that kind of a group would not be sanctioned by the church, to me, is very indicative of the impact of racism. Why wouldn't it be? We have Tongan branches. We have Spanish branches. We have, me and my husband were called to a Spanish ward in Tucson, right? These are all sanctioned by the church. But for some reason, if we mention that there's an African American saying church sanctioned group, people are like, what? How can that be church sanctioned? And to me, that very thing points to the impact of racism. Why else would we think that that was wrong, right? Why else would we think that when everybody else seems to be okay creating units surrounding a particular culture or language, you know? Like, so it's things like that that actually I'm like, well, right there, guys, that's where racism is coming out because that shouldn't feel weird to us. Why does it feel weird to us? Because we are totally okay having a Spanish word. We're totally okay having a Tongan word. We're totally fine having a Japanese word. Why is it weird that there would be an African American one?
And you know what the kicker is? It was sanctioned by the prophet, and the founding members of Genesis were set apart by the two future prophets.
Yeah.
They had a B1 celebration on the 30-year anniversary of the priesthood ban, right? Nobody heard of it, okay? Gladys Knight was conducting, you know, the music and had a choir. One of our own members from Lindell was there in Utah, but nobody hears of these things. That's because, you know, they just don't want. I guess they're not forced to learn the culture like
I think you're right about that. I think the other thing I've seen, so that is one thing right there that I would say, well, that is racism in action. I would say that's systemic racism in action, because obviously people aren't like saying we don't want to have an African American branch or board or whatever. That's not what they're saying. But that the reason it seems weird to us is because it's been systemically created in us to think that that shouldn't happen for whatever reason. The other thing I think of where I'm at is, and I've seen this in a number of different places with different minority groups, and maybe it goes along a little bit with what you said, Stephanie, and that as white people, it's easy for us to just sit and not see or care or wonder about what another group may be thinking or feeling and just expect everybody to fit right in with what we're doing. It's super, super easy to do that. What I have seen is I've kind of looked more outside myself and tried to understand how other people navigate within the church from different cultures, African American included, is that it is uncomfortable. It's like if I want to go walk into, my husband does this all the time because he speaks Spanish, but you know, we have a couple little Hispanic groceries and he'll just go in there, chat with everybody. It's different. It looks different. They have different foods. I feel a little bit uncomfortable, right? I feel a little bit uncomfortable walking into this Hispanic grocery store. Not just because I don't speak the language, but because I know I look different. I'm not the normal kind of person that comes into that store. It does have different kinds of foods. And I've sat with that before thinking, I need to make myself feel uncomfortable because there's no reason why I shouldn't have to be in a place of trying to figure out another culture. And so I feel a little bit like that in the church, that as white people, we do have to be cognizant and kind of push ourselves a little bit and feel a little bit uncomfortable because we need to learn to understand other people. I think I've had a number of experiences that, like I said, we were in a Spanish ward in Tucson, and that was obviously very uncomfortable, but that really helped me see people differently in a different way. I think when people are sent on missions, it's genius to send them to places that they don't feel comfortable in. That's fantastic. But I think we have Micronesians that live in our branch, and I think about how we totally expect them. We totally expect them to just do things the way we do them. Like you said, sing songs the way we sing them, you know, do time the same way we do time, because they have a completely different concept of time. It is a cultural thing that we don't like. We like to be regimented in our time. They're not so much. And people get irritated with that. Not that I think there can be debate about that being good or bad, but it is a cultural thing that we're not even willing to try and understand. We just think there's something wrong, right? It's not us, it's them. So it's these kinds of things that I feel like we do need to step outside our comfort zone, because we are expecting every other culture or every other, you know, type of person to kind of just fit right in and adapt to us versus us trying to figure out what does it look like from a different point of view. Do we always have to do things this way? I mean, can we change? Can we have an African American group gathering? Is that even real? Like, really step outside that and ask those kinds of questions. And I think we have a really hard time doing that. So, okay. How do you think personal identity and self-awareness impact our ability to respond to oppression and injustice as individuals and as a community? Any thoughts about that?
So I just want to say I've been crying for 2 days. With my Saints in Unity is not progressing.
Yeah.
And I want to say my interactions with the president, state president, and it should be more like the lack of interaction, him with me per se, because it feels like I'm pursuing a man that doesn't want me. And I call it a political kiss and a promise that I've been getting. And this Sunday, it just hit me in the face. It's just like, you really should hear, you're listening to the spirit of God, but you need to listen to the spirit of man right now. And it just all of a sudden I realized it's not time anymore. It's not time. And even with my Genesis group, that was just like the last nail in the coffin. For 2 years, I've been, trying to get people to come to Genesis, bring your ministering brothers and sisters, bring your people of color. Okay. And so at first it started out with a bang, but then I had to go around the mission president to get the missionaries to come, you know what I'm saying? And so they can only, come if they have an investigator to come. So that means you got to find somebody to come to Genesis and pick them up. Okay. So, but anyway, I digress. So I just decided, 2 years, I have 6, maybe 10 people at the most, and 4 of them are missionaries that come every month. And these people, I personally ask them to come, okay? And they do come, same people. At every month, I have to say, why isn't it in the bulletin? It should be in there with all the announcements. There's flyers on the bulletin board. There's flyers when you first come in, 2 years. And people are always asking me, well, which Sunday is it? What time is it? And then it's just like, you forgot to mention it in sacrament, that this is happening. And this last Sunday, sure enough, they didn't announce it. So I'm just like, I'm just like, you forgot to announce it. It wasn't in the bulletin. We got a new lady. And she goes, well, I'm not sure when they teach me how to do that, I'll do that. So she put it in the bulletin for this Monday. It was Sunday, right? But anyway, Sunday I decided I told the group, I said, I want to thank you for your support, but we will not be having the broadcast at the building anymore. I mean, I've tried for 2 stakes, many wards, and I got 6 to 10 people. I said, this doesn't constitute to me opening up the building. And I'm just like, well, we can rotate out through people's homes who want to do this, not surrendering, but not totally surrendering, but I am surrendering. So it's just like, and it's hard when you're trying to fight a battle by yourself, you feel like, so that's I felt for 2 days.
That's
So,
tough.
but I'm working through it, and it's just like, Lord, just let me know. I'm gonna be over here in this cave with Elijah. Just make sure the birds bring us food, okay? Let me know when I can come out again. So,
Yeah, that's really tough.
sorry, I talk too much.
No,
I-
you're fine. That's something that I feel like that's a heavy thing to carry and a heavy loss. I think,
Mhm.
um, it,
Stephanie, are you going to go ahead?
no, you can go ahead.
Are you going to continue trying to do it?
Yeah, like I said, we'll rotate it through the homes. Next month I'm gonna be out of town in Vegas for Thanksgiving, but I need to back away, and the whole situation is, now that I thought about it, I probably should have fought more, because the state president did like Saints in Unity. I should have fought more for my initiative when I was in the state position. They wanted to do something where we're going out to the community. And it's just like, but I want to work in our church, you know what I'm saying? And hindsight, what can you say? But I would have thought, well, he would have been inspired, saying, no, we're not going to release you from this. We're going to help you with this section. But that was never an option given to me. And like Sunday, I'm like, I probably should have fought more 2 years ago for that.
Yeah.
So
I
you
don't
go.
know. I don't know that I'm thinking about this properly, because I'm not in the middle of what you're experiencing and what's frustrated you. But if you have 6 to 10 people who come regularly, even if you have to almost beg them, that's 6 to 10 people who might. It's like baptisms. One person being baptized can influence hundreds of others down the road. And just as what I was been thinking as you're talking about it, what a blessing you are to those 6 to 10 people for your courage and your willingness to be hurt for the right reason. I don't know if that even makes sense, but that is.
Yeah, I understand. But and it's just like, and then you got to figure out who's going to open up the building
Yeah.
and set up the broadcast. And it is just so much of a struggle, and it's just like, we can do this and rotate it through people's homes.
That's a great idea.
Do it.
I like
And
that.
then you can come to their homes and have more of a I don't know, closeness and gather, instead of being in an institutional thing.
Yeah, the closeness will probably be even more. You'll be closer in homes because you're comfortable in somebody's house, and
like they are willing to have you in their home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Huh.
So that's where I was. I'm just like, I'm done. But I'm like, no, Stephanie, you can just, calm down, just keep crying. And, it's been raining every day that I've been crying. And we've had like up to 8 inches. There's been 3 drowning deaths in floods. And that's not the river, honey. That's just creeks. And the little whatever in the cities.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So I'm like, LaSonia, I think I should do my part in the rain and stop crying so I can lighten up a little bit.
I'm thinking about this idea of how our own personal identity helps us show up and to fight these I hate using battle language. I really kind of tried to pull away from that to really kind of work through this hard work. And I feel like, Stephanie, to me, that what you're talking about there is very much your own sense of self and who you are as a daughter of God, showing up for these people, right? To help them have a space. And that is, I'm commending you for that, because it is hard and there's nothing easy about this, and you don't necessarily have great leadership support. But I don't know. So the next question, I'm looking at this next question too, because it makes me think of this next question. So maybe I'll just move on to that, because here I'm looking at what resources and gifts do you possess that will enhance the healing of your community? I see that in you. Like, so I don't know, just as I can't solve your problem or make it better or make it easier. But what I see you doing is you're bringing your own identity as a Black daughter of God to this particular group with your own gifts and resources, and utilizing them to build Zion, in my opinion. So I guess I see that. And I wish it was easier, but maybe the fact that maybe it needs to be you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about that. So any other thoughts about those?
I just want to say one little thing before we move on. But I will still do that initiative what is it? PowerPoint. So when I am ready to come out of the cave with Elijah, I'll have my tools prepared.
Wow.
So, it's just like, well, I'm sleeping right now. Wake me up when I can really do something.
And maybe you need a little bit of a rest too. We all need a Sabbath.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we do.
So any other thoughts along either of those things, or even in response to Stephanie's situation? But I'm particularly impressed, honestly, with the gifts that you bring.
Yeah.
I guess I would just ask, what do gifts do any of us? What gifts can any of us bring for this particular topic?
I think from what I'm hearing, and Stephanie, I don't know you, but you have a stick-to-itiveness that not everybody has. Like when the pioneers started west, they probably are all pretty excited, but after about the first few days, it's like, dude, this is hard work. I got to walk everywhere, and I got another 1,000 miles to go. Oh, and it's raining, and I have to. You just have a stick-to-itiveness that's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. But when I'm done, I'm done.
Understood. Yeah.
I was like, nope, I had enough of that. Lord, take them somewhere. So, and like I said, I tried to pull myself back to like, it's been 2 years, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, okay, calm down. Just start with the home. It's okay. And then like, but with the stake president, it's like, don't push him on the subject anymore. It's like, well, I love to sit down and talk to you about this. And it's just like, where are you coming from, man? Isn't that what we've been doing for the last 2 years? Okay, I heard you.
Yeah.
I heard you.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Stephanie, just going to the concept of listening to the Spirit too. For me, having kind of involved myself in some of this work for the last 1.5 years, I have come back to this. When things have happened, have been hard or difficult, or I haven't liked it or whatever, because difficult things have happened. I think I could just let this go. Does anybody really care? I could just stop this right now. You know what? I really could. This could just be the end of it. And to me, the spiritual impressions and strength that I received from the get-go are what I then revert back to. I'm like, but God told me this. You know what I mean? And I'm like, somehow, and I've had to do some of that stepping back too, and reevaluating and rethinking, and even saying I am hibernating for a month or two. Just I'm hibernating for a second. But the spiritual impressions for me, I mean, you could call them gifts or whatever, but to me, or resources, to me, that's been heavily important, because I know the impressions that God has given me, and I have to lean on that because it would be easy. Like, does anybody even really care what I'm doing? Does it even make a difference? But I know what I felt. I know what God has told me through the Spirit. And it's almost one of those things. I think it wasn't Joseph Smith. He said that about the first vision. I didn't have nearly the same experience as Joseph Smith had, but I kind of feel that same way. Like this idea that I know what I felt. I know what God is, kind of directing me to do. And I can't deny that. I mean, maybe it's a suggestion. I don't know. but
no, you're called to do something, but you don't know how to do it.
Yes. And there's boulders and steps and trips along the way. And I think I agree with you, Stephanie. Sometimes it would be super, super nice if I had like all this massive support, right? Especially from leadership, especially from people that I feel really should care. But that's okay. I just know what I know the Spirit told me. And to me, that's a great blessing for me when I am feeling discouraged, is to kind of just continue moving on, whatever that may look like. I still am like line upon line with this particular thing. But definitely the Spirit's been involved in that, and that's been a big part of my movement with a lot of this. So any other thoughts with that?
Well, it's impacted an aging 73-year-old guy in Idaho. Both of you have. Last night we went visiting with a couple last night. One of our granddaughters jumped on a bed and broke it. So we took the piece for this fellow to fix over to his house. We just sat and visited for a while. And I don't know that I would have thought, I wouldn't have thought about it. But because of the meetings that we do here, and there's only 3, I said, I talked to this couple. They're delightful people, but I talked to them about how the ban on the priesthood came about. It's through Brigham Young, and talked about Joseph Smalls. Do you know who Joseph Smalls is in the stake? Well, of course not. They don't know him. So I don't know if that's just, you guys are helping me in my little tiny efforts. So little by little, things are expanding. So you guys are a benefit. Joseph Smalls, I'm going to read you something real quick. He filled out, I don't have his permission to share it yet, but he talked about what leadership positions he served in after the priesthood ban was lifted. I'm just going to share them with you. It's amazing. Branch president. Now he's in the military, so he traveled all over the world. Branch president in Plainview, New York, wherever that is. First counselor in the Italy branch. Stake High councilman in Washington. District councilman in Bismarck, North Dakota. Stake High council in North Dakota. First counselor in some city I can't pronounce in Turkey. Branch president in Turkey. Executive secretary in Nampa, Idaho, up the ward here. That's just amazing. Anyway, I want to interview him again, but he answered every one of the questions that I sent to him, and he sent me this beautiful email with questions answered in it yesterday. I'll get his permission to share, because I've told you I want to put it in the book I'm writing, his story.
Yeah, that's great. All right.
Anyway,
let's go. Let's go to this last question. What role does spirituality or faith play in your efforts to promote respect and address suffering?
It's the core, isn't it? Faith in Jesus Christ, and the faith that what is being done is correct. Without that faith, the willingness to do what both of you are doing wouldn't happen. I think I'm saying that right. Without faith in the Savior, it wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have the strength to do what you're doing. What does Elder Bednar call it? The enabling power of the Savior's atonement. I believe it's rich in both of you, in what you do. through the discouragements, through the challenges, through the lack of support from those who should give support. Yeah, I think it's core.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I know I've heard Stephanie speak of her faith. For me, it is. I wouldn't be doing this, actually.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be work that I was doing.
Yeah. But it affirms my faith, both of you. I mean, that Rachel, you're willing to learn, and Eric, you're researching Black pioneers and slaves and what they contribute, and the acknowledgement that they were intelligent people or faithful people. That's encouraging, and it also it makes me aware. It's like, yeah, see, we did that back then, because I don't even know my own story of my people because it's been so hidden. So
Yeah.
I appreciate people like you and Paul Reeves. I'm reading his new book, and it's just like, Satan's been sifting this country like wheat. I mean, they tried to get away from slavery, but the thing is, when you first, like I texted Paul today, I go, it didn't start with the Blacks. You guys enslaved each other's. And then you thought, oh, we can't do this. So you found another group really to enslave. But yeah, indentured servitude back in the 1700s was just a form of slavery. And you did it to each other. It just, once you brought over the Blacks, it was cheaper, But yeah, so it's just like it's a disease and a cancer that needs to be irradiated out of the country, and the mentality is like a deep wound, like we said, needs so much debridement. Okay.
Yes.
And the only way I feel that it can be overcome is for people to just look at each other as brothers and sisters of God, of equal standing.
Yeah.
That we all have the same rights under heaven.
Yeah.
And until we come to that basic, and it seems, it's basic, though it's so hard. Until we come to that understanding, nothing can really be solved. Really, in my mind.
No, well, I agree.
I could be wrong, Maybe
my
there's
opinion
another
is, yeah, well, I mean, my opinion is that slavery, the caste system, any of this stuff is the basis of the destruction of civilization. I mean, we see it. As we've been reading the Book of Mormon this year, that's become so apparent to me.
Yeah.
That, racism in the form that we see it now is our current present day issue. But this is like innately what people have been fighting against since the beginning of time. You've got Cain and Abel. You've got the Israelites and the Canaanites. You've got really in the time of Christ, there was constant factions, even, among the Jewish, among the Samaritans, right? I mean, there's just always been, to me, it's at the root of so much of what is wrong in this world. And our current day presentation of it, some of it has to do with racism. It's our battle today. So, yeah. All right. Well, any experience that was shared today that resonated with you? Any common themes or shared emotions?
For me, it's what both of you are doing. It resonates with me because of the I don't even know if stick to it is a word, but I like it.
I like it.
It just says,
it makes me not want to give up.
you have grit and determination. And that's really resounded with me.
Yeah. But, I have to say, Whit Paul Reeves, the stake president, did allow that to happen. But there's a caveat to this because
Okay.
he presented it to all the stake presidents in the region. And they're like, we're not going to put that up. No, we're not going to do that. But the one stake president who used to be in my ward that, is in South Stake, I'm like, here, read this. And I want to have this guy to come. And I believe the only reason why it's like all who you know, right?
Yeah.
I believe that if the stake president, my friend in South Stake, didn't tell my president because the other ones were poo-poo, we can't do that. No, we're not going to talk about these things. If he didn't tell my stake president, no, I got you. I have your back. I will do this with you. I really believe it wouldn't have been done because he would have been standing on his own trying to do it. And he didn't feel the strength to do it on his own. But that's okay. Because I was a ground soldier and I went out and banged sheets. I tried to get my foot in North Stake, trying to get somebody in there instead of just popping up. Hey, how are you? You know what I'm saying? But, and so and I just feel like I wish he has that desire, but I don't think my stake president has that spiritual strength yet.
It's hard.
Okay, that's very possible.
Yeah.
So Paul Reeve came and talked in your guys' area?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that together. That's what I did.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, my
my
word.
big crowning jewel. Okay.
Yeah.
And then, they were having like
Wow.
a lecture series fireside, but I didn't even know about it, but I was working on Paul Reeves and somebody goes, well, because I was talking about my plight. Well, the state just had that Paul Reeves guy came out. I said, yeah, I did that.
Good for you.
I was the cause of that. Okay.
Yeah.
I was the
Wow.
one lighting those fires. Okay. So, that I feel good because like there was a lot of obstacles and I could see somebody pulling down all my scaffolding. And it's just like I'm running around with buckets of water. Put that fire out. Put that fire out. You sit down.
I will say, as far as like appreciating experiences and things, I really appreciate seeing the work that everybody here is doing. I appreciate seeing the work of other people that I work with, knowing that God's working, that the Spirit's working through people to do this. So being able to talk with people who also are feeling that, working in them, and I feel that tonight that God is in this work, that he hasn't forgotten. He's just kind of waiting for people to get on board.
Just waiting for them to get on board. But, I had the spiritual fire with me. It's like, okay, Lord, you gave me my orders. I will march. Let's move these mountains. And it's just like, I'm getting tired, people moving these mountains by myself. Could you please help me, And it's just like, and it's just like, I don't want it to be, what was it somebody said once that said, oh, this is the Stephanie show. I said, no, it's not a Stephanie show. You were given the assignment to run your own episode. I wasn't directing what you did. I told you what I needed. Now go do it.
Yeah. Well, I think on that note, on that just enthusiastic fire and just get up and go and do things note, next week I do want us to come prepared to talk about some things we want to do. This will be our last session, and I want us to go away from this having some ideas and some thoughts and maybe a little bit of faith in God knowing that he's in this work and what does he want us to do. So I just wrote down a couple of things to think about. And now that I'm thinking about it, Stephanie, Paul Reeve is always willing to come and talk to various groups.
Yeah.
So that I would almost put him on this. So I just wrote down a couple of things that to think about, things that you may want to do as next step or continue to do. Paul Reeve, I would put on there because he's willing to talk to anybody who's willing to invite him. The school, the University of Utah, actually pays for him to do this. So he actually
Okay. So he didn't charge.
It's free.
it's free.
And that was the big selling part.
Mhm. Yep, it's free.
They
Uh-huh.
fly them out, put them up, you know. I'm like, well, get you a barbecue dinner, okay?
Yep. Yep. So just I don't know for how long they'll continue to pay for it, but as far as I know, the person that he's working with that's over whether or not they're going to pay him is heavily invested. She's not LDS. I think she's Jewish, but she is very much on board with what he's doing in terms of trying to educate our
Interesting.
community. Yeah, so I would definitely put him on this. LaSonia's starting a new group where they're talking about stories of Black pioneers, music, I think just art, anything. I think she's kind of just gathering some ideas of what people want, but she's starting that. I'm going to the one on Thursday. That's this Thursday.
It's just a
Getting a feel for what people want.
yeah, getting a planning group, and they haven't settled on which day they want to do. So I said, well, in January, we're having Rachel's stuff. So if they do it on Tuesday, maybe we can do ours on Thursday.
I'm
or
totally
vice
willing to work
versa.
with stuff. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
So
'cause
I know me and my husband this is our date night. We're going to go to LaSonia's group this Thursday. So
All right.
that's going to be our date.
Well, there you go.
So she's doing that this Thursday, and I think she's doing another one on Tuesday, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. They have the prayer circle on Black Lives Blessed that now LaSonia and Michelle, I want to say, is leading.
Yeah.
So the Meeting House Mosaic, I don't know if I don't know if everybody here's heard of it, but they work on getting representative art in church houses.
Oh.
So representative art is another way. There's actually some people who are working to get more art approved, that like approved art, right, that can go into our chapels. And they have a collection of pieces that are already approved that you can use. But they also have a bunch of different artwork that you can just look at, peruse. They're there to help support, kind of that endeavor. I actually was going to read to you guys. We just recently did an African American graveyard cleanup in my community, and I was blown away with how amazing it was. And I thought, so this is another thing if you want to look at this, because I think this is I am coming to recognize the importance of this. When we went to Texas, we went to another graveyard that was in awful repair, and so it was another one that we looked at that they're talking about trying to figure out how to get help in repairing it. But we did it with my branch and this group that it's called Pennytown, which was an original, like, after African Americans were freed, this was a town that they settled in. They owned it, like all of it was theirs. So it was all Black owned for a while, and they now have a historic church there. And then they have the Black grave sites that went with it that are in complete disrepair or were. So we worked with them and part of our city historical society to clean it up. And it was amazing. I mean, it was amazing. Like, even during testimony meeting, we had people bearing testimony about the spirit that was there. And this was what the family member who owns this place, they're not members, but this is what he said. So I wanted to read this to you just so you can see the impact of just this one simple thing did for them. So this was his text back to us. He says, I was so impressed with the workers. After Brent gathered everyone and explained how things would work, people broke into groups and attacked each zone, and it was poetry in motion. It was well organized and everyone worked hard. Wow, what a beautiful sight to behold. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there also. That was the case today. Bless your ministry and all involved with the cleanup. I talked with my ancestors that lie there in hope of the resurrection for a while after you all left, and they were very proud of all of you. So that was his testimony of that. So even something like that can have I know it had an impact on me. My 10-year-old daughter went. She got up and bore her testimony about it. I mean, it was just very impactful. So that's something else to look at. I think the African American graveyards have been desperately neglected. Nobody has thought about them. And then finding and recording the history of African Americans, I feel like all of us are already doing some of these things. So these are just some ideas that I threw down. But next week, I would love for you guys to think about, in reality, what's your plan for moving forward with this? What would you like to do? What does this look like for you? So those were just some thoughts. We'll get together next week and talk about, I would love for you guys to bring whatever thoughts you have. We'll have a discussion just surrounding what we would like to do. We can look at challenges that may come with that. We can maybe like a working session for each other to figure out where we want to go from there. It's going to be a much more open session because I want to kind of just more do this as a planning group together. What does this look like for us to move forward with this work? So that's the plan for next week.
Cool.
So, all right. Any other questions, thoughts, ideas?
No, thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I say everybody. Thanks, you two.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I've
Thank you for
appreciated
your
this group.
stories, and and I'm sure there's another Black person in your community, Eric.
Oh, there are a few. Yeah, it's just very
they're
heavily
just
white.
hiding.
Yeah.
Or not being put out there so people can see them, which was the point of Genesis Group, to bring people so they know they're not the only one.
Yeah.
That there's support out there. But anyway, I'll keep plugging.
You're good, Stephanie. We're here for you.
Thank
You can always call me and complain.
I talked a lot today, and I really thank you for it, because now I feel a little better. And it's just like, I know, Lord, I have to adjust my attitude and not burn down the place.
Well, if I can keep you from burning down the place, I guess that's a good thing.
I appreciate it. I can feel him saying, "Hold on, girl, just hold on."
Sounds good. Well, I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And it'll be the regular time next week, so we should be good with that.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.